Good evening, everyone. I'd like to thank everybody for taking time out of their evening schedule. Today is March 16th, 2026, and we're here for the Neighborhood Plan Committee meeting. First of all, I'd like to go through time limit policies. I'm Larry Gray, Chair for the Neighborhood Plan Committee. Anyone wishing to speak is asked to raise their hand, and when recognized by the chair, to address comments directly to the chair. That's for all our virtual people online. Speakers are to keep their comments under 2 minutes. Public testimony taken on each agenda item. Please silence all electronic devices. The commission may take action on any agenda item as required by the state sunshine law, and specific issues not noted on the agenda cannot be voted on properly on the agenda. Okay, we got everybody signed in here. There's no room. Tom Heinrich here today. Okay, Dylan, could you please do a roll call, please?
Yes. Bernal. Crab. Elliot Pahinui.
Here.
Knight.
Here.
Smith.
Here.
Verret.
Here.
Younginaka. Here. All right, we have 5. We have quorum. Chair.
Thank you. Okay, in January 12th was our previous meeting. Unfortunately, we had to reschedule for February because the governor's emergency mandate essential people. The mayor backed that up, so we missed that meeting. But we do have the minutes that were distributed to everybody. There is a slight change that Mr. Lai had submitted, and we'll make those changes. If there are no other changes to the minutes, I'd like to go ahead and approve them as amended. Hearing, thank you. Second. Okay. Okay, minutes are approved. Okay, for new business, we in February we sent out an email blast to all the neighborhood boards asking them to review their boundaries, and of course Chair Smith and I have been attending some of the neighborhood board meetings, like giving them a little description on the importance of that. Right now, I have received no changes. Everybody seems to be pretty happy with what they have. Thank you, Dylan, for getting that email blast out. The next item on the agenda, go ahead.
Because we're gonna cancel a few neighborhood boards for this month, can we consider extending the deadline?
Well, the deadline is until April 27th. There'll be another meeting. That's why.
I'm just saying.
That's a good thought, because when I saw the lineup, there were at least 6 boards in,
Yeah.
At least 6.
and I said, well, that's an impact right there.
Yeah, because 2 in my neighborhood got canceled, including mine.
And especially there was one critical survey that the FAA was asking the neighborhood boards.
Yeah.
And of course, some felt that they lost out. But I went back to them, I said, no, you wouldn't continue, say it as it is.
Also do it as an.
And especially because that was such an impact to their community, probably the most important thing they did
Yeah.
all year.
Okay.
Okay, I'm sorry.
Are we still on this one item? I have.
Yes, go ahead.
I would tell you that neighborhood board 10, which is McKee and Newton Wanu, there's some discussion about maybe making an exchange of territory. So, I don't know how I'm going to say it. So it wouldn't be cascading. And then that Newton Wanu was recessed for this month, for March. So that's going to be presented. I don't know that McKee has the enthusiasm that one board member who's no longer on the board have. So I don't know that that'll happen. But there is quite a bit of interest within Board 15, which is Khalid Lama and Chinatown, over one particular area. So, and like I said, that would be just an exchange between the 2 boards if it were to happen. That's my understanding. So they're going to look at that in more detail in the coming month and make a decision. I just wanted to give it up.
Okay, thank you for that update.
Question on
Go
this.
ahead.
I know Manoa is possibly going to look at sub-districts, not district boundary, but sub-district, which as well would affect, having to do some background work for the next election. So anyway, it doesn't look like any external boundary for them.
Okay, thank you for that update.
Chair, if I could add, I think I've been asked about that, and my response was, at this time, we were just looking at the board boundaries themselves, just so you know, I mean, I don't think it's a problem, but thank you.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then-
Okay, Kevin, you got a question?
Chair, thank you. Just to follow up on what Chair Smith had mentioned earlier about the neighborhood board 13 downtown and 15 Cle Palama. I don't know if this will all be negotiated during the month of April, but just to be clear, that doesn't mean that such can't happen in the future per whatever the current and until yet amended neighborhood plan permits. This would only just be to help streamline the next edition when published of the neighborhood plan. Is that correct?
Yes, yes, and the other thing too is the date that we established as a deadline for everybody to submit their recommended changes, we can extend that out. That's flexible. They may need more time to do homework and negotiations.
Thank you.
We do want to finish the neighborhood plan here as soon as possible. That'll be one item that has to be completed. Okay, any other comments? What, Tom?
One, I just remember, just come from the Charter Commission meeting, Lloyd and I were there, and it wrapped up at 5:25. Anyway, there were a couple of comments with some overlap of neighborhood board system type things. And one of the comments by one or two of the Charter Commissioners was concern, whether this goes anywhere there remains to be seen, but concerned with lack of reapportionment, things that way. So things are going to disappear for a little while at the Charter Commission into permitted interaction groups. So where some of that discussion concerning neighborhood board system may go remains to be seen. But Lloyd and I both made some separate comments on a couple of things like the quorum, Senate Bill 2397. But beyond that, there's nothing that we heard in terms of any threat to the boards, if you will, as there was 10 years ago, in terms of potential repeal or anything that way.
I have a
Great.
question
Yes,
after
Angela.
that, because I remember someone brought this up at the last commissioning. So for like Eva, which had the whole Keely development, that now changes the population size of that area.
Yes.
Is that also being considered now, or is that gonna be a separate thing?
What do you mean separate?
Well, now it's just like, it's a very large area.
Why no, they consider Hope Ely their area of
Okay,
responsibility.
okay.
We just need to make sure that that's described in the
Okay.
neighborhood plan
Okay.
correctly. That's a good point because,
Well, just because
with
like
all of the-
proportionately,
but all of, because in the last 10 years, that grown tremendously as well as Cola Ridge.
yeah,
So those areas, that the population has really increased.
okay.
Yeah, I was correct because when I went to the neighborhood board there, I thought that was part of Montefilo's,
Mm,
Kapolei, oh, it's
No,
that.
it's
I was
not.
corrected.
Just one last follow-up. Appreciate that question because I remember one of the questions that was directed to Lloyd, in essence, was what can the commission do, or is it up to the boards? And we really didn't get into any direct ability to answer that. But the key, of course, is last time we overhauled the plan, we made it so that the commission as well could take initiative as compared to the original plan. Was any initiative as to how the organization of a particular neighborhood board would be came from the community.
Well, I think there's a difference. There's between organization and then making changes. And then, so when it says, establishing boards, it talks about the, checking the census, which is a good idea. But there's a different standard between, I think, organizing and making the changes that we're talking about, pre-established.
Yeah, be interesting to see what those standards may be then.
Yeah.
Okay.
And I have a copy, but it's in the.
Okay,
So maybe we're talking about two different.
yeah, okay, go ahead, thank you, Ben.
Okay. All right, and our previous meeting, we had discussed, we're already in the chapter 13 review for the powers, duties, and functions of neighborhood boards. We went through the sections 2-13, 101 through,
I'm sorry, Chair, we had chapter 18.
I'm sorry, I skipped over item B. Thanks for the correction. We still have a few items we need to cover with chapter 18 as far as the complaint process. I know, Tom, you had one action item to provide for that. I think you're still looking up for information. But you want to give a little
Yes,
up on that?
the only thing that I had that we had lingering was a question. There was a 218-101, the complaints provision, had an item B, which states only violations of the plan should be held as complaints subject to this chapter, period. Any non-neighborhood plan related complaint or portion thereof shall be ineligible for review under this chapter. However, in section A, at the end, it talks about, who can make a complaint for alleged violations of the plan. So there was just there was just a question of whether it was repetitive. And so there is the proposal just to eliminate that particular provision. And I don't know if people wanted to think about it more. That would be my recommendation, is just to eliminate subsection B. But there it is. There.
Do we need to take action on that or just
Well,
write down the comments?
I would say if there's no objection,
Are there any objections to that?
Just for clarification, this highlighted portion is what you're talking about? Okay, I'll put it on screen.
subsection B.
Good, Tom.
My comment would be, not an objection, but my comment really would be, at this point, if there's anything else that really needs to be done, it's best, I think, we kick it out for whatever public meeting, that kind of stuff, or to the boards. And I would leave that in at the moment to solicit any further comment, because part of that is, A, may be too subtle. B, makes it clear without mentioning HRS chapter 92 that if you got a specific sunshine law complaint or whatever, take it across the street to OIP.
If I might, Chair. Well, it's sort of unclear. Like, for instance, permitted inaction groups are not. Oh, excuse me. As far as,
Yeah.
I would explain just very quickly. There's a lot of highlights in red. We reviewed all those highlights at the last meeting. Everything was okay. I actually posted where those corrections, but basically all the corrections that were presented except for 101D were accepted. Okay, just for clarification. So as to your point, it seems unclear to me whether some aspects of the sunshine law might come in by inference to the plan. So, for instance, permitted interaction groups. If there were a problem with, say, a board doing something wrong with a permitted interaction group, which is very easy, some just make a mistake. That could be interpreted as not being part of the plan. I mean, very well, because it's not specifically mentioned at all in the current neighborhood plan. So, maybe some wiggle room might not be such a bad idea. That would be my suggestion, that we could tackle.
And one other comment is, as you mentioned, PIGs is a very good example for something like that. From prior discussion at an earlier meeting, there was some consideration as well for squeezing a bunch of other things out of the plan that are specifically provided for in chapter 92, such as how many days you got to get the agenda in before whatever, because all of that guidance is in chapter 92. So it can go both ways in one sense of what we leave in, what we take out.
Well, we did have that discussion, but we didn't come to a conclusion. And my suggestion is not a lot of people are going to read HRS 92. They're probably going to read the plan, or at least be more readily willing to read the plan as opposed to
No,
cracking
agreed.
up the yeah.
And that's the risk, is to how much later amendment we may need to do. Thank you, Chair.
Okay, thank you. Great, thank you. And Mahia just joined in.
That was, yeah, her phone number. I did just want to check. So that section you were just talking about is somewhat related to this one that is in the section. So this is about sunshine law complaints and directing them to OIP and then providing a copy also to the.
Well, yes, but my impression of that, and it's been a couple months since I looked at it, is that's merely saying, just pointing out to people that they can make a concurrent complaint with the sunshine law. Nothing in the plan, precludes that. And also, if they do, we ask that, or the NCO asks that they provide a copy of that or let the NCO know. So it really doesn't expand the jurisdiction of the plan, at least as I recall.
And it also doesn't eliminate complaints from coming to the commission when maybe they are directed for OIP if they're sunshine law complaints.
Well, but the question is are all sunshine complaints in the plan, and maybe if they're not specifically spelled out,
Yeah, I see.
would that be then a time that we would have to dismiss because they're not technically in the plan? So there's some lack of clarity, and different commissions might view that a little differently if you want to be very persnickety. And like the example used earlier, like anything with a permissible interaction group, the PIG, we could just say it's on the plan. So therefore, we have no jurisdiction over it, and it's we got to wait for OIP to weigh in.
Yeah, I only bring it up because if this is in there and this wasn't in this, that's not in the original
Yeah.
plan, right? This was an addition. So the fact that that's in there, yeah, I don't have a problem with removing.
Okay. Yeah, and like I said, that's merely I think it's more informative and it makes requests. So it really is not it's not a directive. I don't think anything in there directs people you have to do this. And it's certainly nothing that I don't think there would ever be a complaint under that provision, like I said. At least that's my interpretation, Chair.
Okay, thank you. Any other further discussion?
Let me stop sharing and see if there's any hands raised. Kevin.
Kevin, go ahead.
Chair, thank you. Regarding that previously highlighted section and sunshine issues, again, I'll just ask, do we have any data on when sunshine law related complaints came to light, were submitted, came to or through NCO? I would imagine that a lot of the times it was things such as proper notice of meetings. So does this mean that all of those issues will get relegated to OIP, knowing that the timeline is potentially long for some of those issues, although we do know that they will issue brief notes on certain issues? Again, I'm just trying to see if we imagine certain scenarios, is there any role that the commission could or still could play, again, to help expedite things for the board so there's not going to be a large delay if we assume that the commission is familiar with HRS 92 and, again, as an august, knowledgeable body, we'll be able to make some comments and feedback to or address complaints about that. Don't want to rehash the whole thing that we've gone about before, but I just wonder if the boards will lose out because of this redirection of things that might be easily addressable otherwise. Thank you.
Yeah, Kevin, once we institute the new procedures and everything, we'll be monitoring this flow, watching the timeliness to make sure that it's going as far as what we had anticipated. So, and we'll make those necessary adjustments if we're failing. Okay, but thank you for bringing that up.
Chair, can I just clarify that? So, I didn't hear an objection from a committee member. So are we okay with removing this? We can certainly let any public hearing know they can see the drafts. So, I don't know what the final disposition of this was. That's what is it? I didn't hear an objection, so I assume that's removed. Okay. So with that, just one last point. In the committee, I would make a motion that the committee approve the draft and send it to the full commission for review.
Okay, do I have a second?
I'll second that.
Okay? All in favor, say aye. 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 Any objections? Abstentions? No. Okay, thank you, Batters. Thank you. Okay, moving that forward. Okay, moving back to discuss chapter 13, powers, duties, and functions and neighborhood boards. Where we left off the last meeting, we began to discuss conflicts of interest, and that's where I want to get back to. And
Right, Mahaya said yes, she couldn't speak.
Mahan, go
Yes,
ahead.
but her vote was yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes, yeah, just make sure you got it.
Yeah.
Thank you.
And also, I wanted to acknowledge our two other guests with us today, with Dr. Melendez, and also Alex Gaius, who's the vice chair for the Eva Beach Neighborhood Board. Alex, you copy?
Yeah, thanks, Rat. I just joined here a little bit late after work, just listening in. Appreciate it.
Okay, thanks. Okay, so and you're going to put up that on the screen
Yes.
so we can look at it. Okay, Dylan's going to put up on the screen here. I've got a document set up where I've got the actual neighborhood plan on one side of the document, and just in comments that we're jotting down in our discussion items, key points, things that we want to look at possibly changing and editing. But the conflicts of interest, we're all familiar with this. No board member shall solicit or accept any gift directly, indirectly, whether in any form of money, loan, gratuity, favor, service, thing, promise, another form of under circumstances which reasonably be inferred as a gift intended to influence the member and performance of the member's official duties. Nothing herein shall preclude the solicitation or acceptance of lawful contributions, elections, campaigns. And also disclosure is so important. Disclose confidential information gained by reason of the member's office, position, or use of information for the member's personal gain, benefit of anyone, or engage in any business transaction or activity, or have a financial interest, direct, indirect, which is incompatible with proper discharge of members' official duties, or which intend to impair the independence of judgment and performance of the member's official duties. And when a condition exists which qualifies under this section, the member shall recuse themselves from any discussion or voting related to this particular issue. And we all know that probably the number one reason a board member would have to recuse himself, because many board members have their own personal property. The developers that come in to get briefs, if there's going to be anything where they're going to benefit, they have got to declare that, and it's their fiduciary responsibility. So anybody want to add anything to this or any changes? Go ahead there.
Well, I would just point out that most of the time a recusal, it practically functions as a no vote. So I don't know where maybe a change could be made, but it would be great, I think, if we could modify the voting requirements to not include the recusal. But I'm not sure that we could do that under the sunshine. I don't know if that's, or not sunshine law, but I think there might be meeting laws. But anyway, that's something to think about. I just wanted to throw that out.
Okay. I can't see, like Tom.
Thanks. I appreciate that question, Bob Patrick. Recusal is a whole different question, but it doesn't, at the moment, it would not change the necessary quorum in that regard. Nor would Senate Bill 2397 as presently written. That actually brings a whole different wrinkle having to do with recusal. Because the bill, as it relates only to neighborhood board, proposes that if you have a vacancy, then you reduce the denominator to determine quorum and stuff. But nothing is said about recusal. It's simply attendance.
Yeah, I know. And so you have a big voting problem. So it's not just, and I can understand there's a real reluctance to go too far to the other side of saying, if you have a majority or you have some quorum present and the majority of just that quorum. But on the other hand, the recusal does function as a no vote, because a lot of times these boards have maybe they have 15 members and they get 8 or 9 showing up, and you have a recusal or two, and you practically can't pass anything. So I don't know how if we're able to address that as a commission, I don't know if we want to, but that's just something I want to put in people's mind that it's kind of a problem. And I'm not saying to change any of that because you do need people to recuse themselves at the appropriate time.
Yeah.
But, it would be great if we can provide a fix where that's not, where the vote counts are adjusted because of the recusal.
Guess we'll wait to see if the Senate comes in.
I think that's just quorum, so I'm not sure. We may
Yeah,
be
it
stuck-
doesn't address recusal.
Yeah. we
And
may
I'm
be
just making
stuck.
a note to check both Roberts and even as well Mason's manual of legislative procedure and stuff to see if they address recusal. Or if recusal unfortunately is in its own box and
Right.
doesn't adjust quorum.
Ellen, I can't see if anybody's got a hand up.
Well, I have a question.
Yeah, so
Go ahead.
yeah.
I remember we talked about this last time, but for disclosure, is that just a one time you say it, or is it every time the topic gets brought up, you have to say it?
I think every time the topic gets brought up, because that's fair,
You gotta
because
keep it clear.
it keeps it clear, and if somebody wasn't there in the meeting before, then you'd be fair and honest, so, yeah.
Chair, I just wanted to note that, yeah, whatever happens with this section 3, in 14, 115 and 116, that's where they discuss voting and really the difference between recusal and then just disclosing a conflict and still being able to discuss and vote. So that, whatever it is decided there will be reflected
The next.
in the next section that we'll tackle. So let me go back to see. Kevin.
Kevin,
Chair, thank you. Regarding item 105A, I saw something in the news, I thought recently about campaign contributions, so a little bit sensitive about that, I guess. But with a note in A about election campaigns, does anybody actually monitor an election campaign and the contributions for a neighborhood board election? If not, who does? If it's not anybody in this department, who does? And if they don't, does it really matter? And if it doesn't matter, should it even be mentioned? Secondly, for A3, I do think the language should be expanded either here or maybe elsewhere further down about beyond financial interests. Also should address the conflicts of interest of city employees who might be neighborhood board members. And we've talked about in the past how there's the chance that employees who are neighborhood board members might vote in certain ways or might feel intimidated about not voting in certain ways because of the direction of the current administration or supervisors or whatnot. Maybe that's not going to happen now, but it could happen in the future. I think this is important when a complaint process, for example, could arise if Section 18 is revised. Because it's clear that voting in a certain way when a complaint is being adjudicated within a board itself could potentially lead to more work for the neighborhood commission office or the neighborhood commissioners, and therefore that might subconsciously or otherwise influence how a given neighborhood board member / city employee might vote. So I also want to suggest that in item A3, the language should be actively changed from shall recuse themselves from any discussion or voting to make it clear any discussion and voting. So we don't have kind of a chance where someone could unduly influence a discussion and yet step away from voting or vote without talking about things. I just think that should be shored up. Thank you.
Kevin, those are two really good points. Could you please draft that up for me and send it to me? And I'll have it in the next draft document for the committee to look at again. I've always thought about this. We have city employees almost on every neighborhood board, and it's good. It's great to have that expertise because especially when you work in city issues, they're subject matter experts. But when a mayor gives a directive out, and a neighborhood board opposes what that directive or what that change is going to be, no doubt about it, every city employee should be recusing themselves.
Yeah, what I did, Kevin, great points, bringing up when we were out doing our rates, I recused myself. I still ran the meeting, but I just didn't vote, and I just made it real clear, these guys pay my paycheck, so I'm not gonna vote. So I think doing that is really important. I think especially if the employee, is a topic that they work in that department, I think it's really clear. You really shouldn't be voting on things you work on. I think that's really a clear, line of demarcation.
I would just like to add that I don't think it's just the city workers, like when we're talking about the different developments as well, there are different people who have different employees, like for instance,
Or developers.
I work for homeless shelters. My district is Diamond Head. There's gonna be certain things where that will affect me directly, and I think it is important to remember that it's not just city workers who might have a conflict, it is everyone who is employed.
And even nonprofit organizations,
Yes.
we get a lot of stuff before my board for nonprofits, and they will recuse themselves because it's just the appearance, it's not good.
I just wanna always clarify that it's not always the city that.
Yeah,
is in a
and
tough
that's Angie,
spot.
that's very important. Lots of things.
We gotta protect our budgets.
I just had that situation in my board meeting where I had to recuse myself.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And it's the right thing to do. And I think it also shows the community a level of trust that they can trust that you guys are not going to game the system.
okay, any other discussion on conflicts of interest? Any other examples? Something that maybe need to be
I
specified?
did want to ask a really quick, I'm sorry, Dylan. Kevin, you talked about, nothing herein shall preclude the solicitation, acceptance of lawful contributions for election campaigns. Is that for neighborhood board elections or just elections for politics in general?
It
Because
looks
I
like it's
know,
boilerplate.
yeah, I agree with you because I've never done anything for a neighborhood board election except email my friends and say, if you like me, please vote for me. I mean, I've never, in all the years, anyone does anything like they do for a political campaign, so I'm not sure what this means. So good point, Kevin, thank you.
I think it's very unlikely that like the elections committee is gonna get anywhere near tracking or asking for filings. So any donation you make is essentially like a gift
Yeah.
to the person. And there's a big question whether you're obligated to even spend that on your campaign. I think in theory, probably not. There's no legal obligation. So, and I don't think there's a moral obligation, but I just don't think that, I think as a practical matter, you could leave this because just no one's gonna cover neighborhood boards. I mean, do you agree, Lloyd? Or Jared?
Yeah. I think, the neighborhood board members aren't covered by election laws anyway. They're not even covered by the ethics law. So. Okay.
Go ahead, Tom.
That I draw this distinction. While the board members may not on its face be covered by the ethics laws, when you take a look exactly at 213-104, the standards of conduct, which is the basis of the city ethics, is exactly taken from the city charter. So while not being employees and whatever, still, at least as an aspirational aspect, the setting forth of the standards in the plan applies that standard of conduct to the board members. Don't ask me about enforcement. That of course gets into something else. And in fact, I had a discussion during recess at the Charter Commission meeting with the what's the proper title? Executive Director of the Ethics Commission and stuff. And as well confirming, yes, please do not have anybody try to throw the plus 400 members, the board system that way. And I said, nobody is to the best of my knowledge, but the question came up, not in formal meeting, but around the Charter Commission. Just to say, does it apply or does it not? Short answer is no, it does not.
Chair, if I may, I just think it's such an it's just not a practical issue. I mean, the issue just isn't worth really worrying too much about.
No, I
Quite
agree.
honestly.
Chair, we do have one more hand raised from Alexander Gouch.
Okay, Alex, go ahead.
Yeah, hey, thanks for that. I don't know if what the rules are on speaking here. This is the first commission meeting I've been to, so I appreciate it. I did have a couple questions on, when you're talking about the recusing oneself when it's the conflict of interest, and I'm just trying to understand that. It feels like a fairly fine line there. I mean, we have lots of military members on our neighborhood board, and so should every time a military topic or something we're voting on come up, should they be recusing themselves? And I guess I'm not super clear on that. If I'm just kind of repeating something that you guys spoke about before I jumped on, I apologize. So I did have, yeah, go ahead.
Are they retired military?
Yeah, either the military or they get contracts from the military and things of that nature, right? So, and yeah, I don't have like a specific objective with this. It's more just a question as you're talking about, like, if I'm a city commissioner and I see something that's a conflict, I recuse myself. I just think, I don't know, it's a fine line. It's a tricky one because a lot of the topics we bring up overlap into those different areas, right?
So Alex, recently with the Red Hill situation, if for active duty military personnel that are on boards, that is where that fine line is.
Okay.
When the board is going to oppose something for, combat base in regard to their defueling and everything else, that individual needs to think about it, because if they vote to oppose the commanding officer, they're an issue. But the retirees, like me, we've got things because the community's up in arms. I've got to lead the board. I have an opportunity to recuse or stand tall and say, hey, this is the right thing to do.
No, that's
I'd say
great.
if it's after something else, yeah, you don't want to have to be voting on something that's an active contract that could even be conceivably under your purview. That would not be a good look.
Yeah. But that was a good point to bring up.
And I guess so. If I had just one other one, if I may, Chair.
Go ahead.
Yeah, so it's more related. So I've been on the neighborhood board for about 7 years now, and I don't have any aspirations for political office. But in a good sense, oftentimes the neighborhood boards are used for that as a stepping stone to office. But then oftentimes I also see a lot of people that come through, and that's their only goal. So they get voted on, and then they never show up, and they eventually get voted off. Or they show up and they're actively kind of trying to campaign for themselves and promote themselves. And so it's a different conflict of interest, saying there's not a direct financial benefit or something like that, but I'll see things like signatures with links to their websites. And I think I might have written Lloyd or someone about this, just asking about this, but I feel like that shouldn't be something that we as a neighborhood board system are promoting, because it almost serves as like a pass through. And for me, I think we should have neighborhood board members that want to be there long term. And so I'm just wondering, I don't think there's any strict kind of rules about that. I could be wrong because I'm not a plan expert, but I have seen that on multiple occasions, and I'm just wondering how do we kind of curtail that?
Well, it all comes down to the chair. The chair is supposed to be managing that, and if anybody is using a particular subject for their own personal campaign, there needs to be a point of order called in the meeting to stop it.
So
that's the chair to monitor.
Sorry, if we see something as a board member outside of a meeting that is doing that, say, what should we do? Should we come to the commission and just let you guys know or something, or I shouldn't say you guys? Should we let the commission know?
I would say work with your chair, and the chair could contact the NCO or with Gary Smith and I.
All right. Well, yeah, because you're putting me in a spot. Because if sometimes I've seen it's the chair, so I'm just wondering in that case what I do.
Well, the thing is, though, there's transparency here too. I mean, this is one of the things we're dealing with besides conflicts of interest and with when the chair is the problem, board members still have a way to get information forward, and you can issue. It's still under the complaint process but before you get there, you can always make that phone call. The NCO, the line is always open. And the thing is, if you're wrong with something, they're going to tell you, but you're doing the right thing. If something is questionable, you got to nip it early before it gets out of hand. And you got anything to add to that?
I just wanted to, as Alex mentioned, that fine line, especially military. When we look at 214.116 in disclosure, the way they write it is any board member who knows he or she has a personal or private interest, direct or indirect, so like military, in any proposal before the board shall disclose the interest either orally or in writing to the board. That will also be made public record. And at that point, that member is not disqualified from participation in discussion or vote. They can, if they wish, they can choose to be recused. And then if they recuse themselves, then they cannot discuss or vote. I like the way that's written. That kind of clarifies. We're leaving it up to that person. At the end of the day, it's going to be made public. We're not hiding anything. So I've seen that used in multiple board meetings where that's been helpful. And it's been used to say, I do potentially have a conflict. I might be friends with the person running the event. I just want to make that clear. But I still want to vote and discuss this.
Yeah, thank you for that input. Okay, Tom?
Just to add real quick, I appreciate that discussion. And note that when we come back to this later, 214-116, that statement does not address what Kathy brought up just a little while ago, suggesting that the disclosure should be made, or at least in conversation with Andrew, the disclosure should be made at every meeting. So if that presents itself as compared to, you got to make the disclosure once, it goes in the minutes, you've done it. The problem has always been, of course, well, I wasn't at the meeting or whatever, right? You need to continue that. So something for discussion when we come back to 214-116.
Yeah, thank you, Tom. Okay, any other discussion on 2-13-105 conflicts of interest? Hey, Tom, go ahead.
One just technical thing, because I was checking back what is on the website and everything. And please note that it starts with a subsection A. There is no subsection B. So as a technical clarification. And let me add again for this one, as proper disclosure, to pick on myself. I did get tremendous cooperation from Office of City Clerk, and was able to have them make copies after my review of what is on file with the city clerk in order to verify whatever amendments from 2000, the original 2008 to the present, does it in fact show up in the master document? Because we wanted to make sure that we have the master document finding done. Okay. So I'm just
I'm
verifying.
sorry, so can you define what you mean as the master document?
I am assuming for the moment that what is posted on the website is the quote unquote master document of
Right.
the neighborhood plan 2008 as amended. Okay. But there are certain typos that show up, and there's some things that are wrong, such as in putting an amendment date prior to the effective date and stuff. So that there's technical things that over the space of time have happened to the document. So it's more a matter of trying at this point to verify what should be there based on what's officially on file with the city clerk, and then work with the neighborhood commission office just to say, okay, who is going to be the master reviser? How does this get handled in your office or whatever? So when these things happen, the master document is revised and a copy of that put on the website.
Well, if I could follow up and I could see the incorporation of the 2008 amendments. That's an important thing to go back and review and make sure that they were properly changed. However, there should be a master amendment or proposed amendment, because when we go out to public meetings, that should be the document that will either up or down, right? Unless we bring it back and make changes, but so.
I'm sorry, I'm lost at what you mean by the
Okay, this is really procedural. Maybe we can talk about it. Yeah, we can talk, since this gets to the adoption, we can talk about it outside. I would probably suggest.
This sidebar.
Yeah.
And then one last hand raised from Kevin.
Yeah, Kevin, go ahead.
Chair, thank you. Second time speaker. And again, this is back to subsection AC. Maybe the lawyers in the room can opine on this, but does the conjunction or in discussion or voting, is that actually interpreted as an and, so that someone who does recuse can neither discuss nor vote. And what if someone discusses part way and then stops discussing? Can they still not vote? I'm just going to make sure there's no loophole, because I can envision a time when it would come back to the commission or something, because this or clause was there. And I know the similar language is present in what Mr. Buck read earlier in, I think it was 214.116.
This is not legal advice, but I would say very clearly, it says you can't be this or that. So yes, you can't discuss or vote.
Thank you,
So
sir.
that's, I think that would be the clear interpretation. Thank you.
Makes sense.
Okay, any other discussion on 2-13-105? Okay, seeing none, we're moving on to 213-106, community forum limitations. The democratic and advisory duty of the boards is to increase and ensure effective citizen participation in decisions of government in accordance with the law. Board meetings held by boards in the performance of their powers, duties, functions shall serve as community forums by promotion of open expression and discussion of ideas related to government and community processes. And activities by board members and the public. Board shall ensure that any public discussion is responsibly conducted and is reasonably related to the purpose stated in this section. Any recommended changes to that? I see none. It's pretty straightforward. Okay, moving on to 213-107. Representative capacity board members. Each member of the board shall represent the entire district and act responsibly to fulfill the board's democratic and advisory duty. Members shall authorize the commission office to publicly post online one form of personal contact information, such as, but not limited to, phone number, mailing address, email, fax number. All discussion and consideration of public affairs shall avoid private matters and or matters under litigation, except to the extent that policies, processes, and decision-making of government are involved. Boards may reasonably exchange in activities which recognize and celebrate participation, contributions, and accomplishments of persons, agencies, community organizations in the life of the neighborhood area and community at large. Okay, any comments on that?
We did have testimony submitted, which I'm going to share screen.
Yes.
And then Kevin has his hand raised. If you want.
Okay, I'll let you go first.
Since it is this one.
For me, Chair.
Yeah, hold on. Is that from you?
No, this one is from Lloyd.
Okay.
At least, yeah.
Okay. Lloyd, you want to brief this?
Yeah, we, well, first of all, part of it is we just want to strike out that fax number.
Yeah. Yeah.
You have a fax number, well, good for you. But anyway, so it just, we just strike out that section that says such as, but not limited to, phone number, mailing address, email, fax number. And we just put it up front, and basically it's one of the following forms of personal contact information, phone number, email, or mailing address. Yeah, the other thing we would like to suggest is, because most of the time the contact information people are looking for is the chair, because they want to get on the agenda or they want to submit something. So we wanted to put something that says chairperson shall authorize the commission to publicly post online two of the following forms of personal contact information: phone number, email address, or mailing address. The neighborhood, and we wanted to make sure the neighborhood commission office contact information does not satisfy this requirement. We've had a number of people that use us as a mailing box. You know, that should stop. So basically what we want is a chair to have two forms, as opposed to the individual having one form.
Chair, I have no objection to that. I was confused though, the way it was written. It says chairperson to authorize the commission, because first you're talking about board members. Then you go to the chairpersons. I was just a little like, who's he talking about? He's at have 2 forms. So I would just say if you can clarify that just a tiny bit, that would
So,
be
it's-
great.
yeah, so,
I have no objection to having 2 forms. I
Yeah.
think that's fair.
because we just jumped into chairperson.
Right,
Without saying,
exactly.
by the way, for the chair.
Say for chair people,
For chair. Okay.
2 forms should be blah, blah, blah. So thank you. That was just.
Yeah, and that's a really good recommendation, because right now, that is a shortfall. Because when I go to the website, and I want to contact the chairs, I don't have all the information. Go ahead.
This is a small manini point, but instead of chairpersons, can we just say chairs? We should try to maybe go non-gender. if
I
you got
appreciate
chairman,
that.
chair-
Thank you.
Okay. thank
Thank
you.
We
Well, I
can-
avoided that one with the persons.
Yeah,
because
instead
that
of
one's
chairperson,
too-
we should-
Chair, that's fine.
Yes, yes.
It's 2026, absolutely. It's just
Yeah,
fair.
really. Come
Yeah, I know. Don't drop the ball.
Yeah.
You got this.
We need to have. a
Yeah,
permitted-
I was thinking something else like that. I think it was a good change.
So like anything else?
No, Dylan one is not here, so it's his fault. Sorry.
No, I do want to, go ahead, but, and that is, it's still okay. I mean, sometimes chairs get mail. I mean, I would think very frequent, because when I got it, I mean, once in a while we get like mail from, Encase or something like that. I mean, that's not going to be a problem retaining the NCO address for that kind of stuff, right?
No, it's,
That's not,
people will send us mail anyway for the chair.
okay.
Come to us. You don't get, certain areas don't get a lot of mail. Certain areas, especially if there's a lot of development going on, they get a lot of mail. And development means anything from a liquor license to a project, a DPP zoning court request. So again, some places have more than others.
I just would think that some people might be very reluctant to put, if it's like their home address on there. And I don't know, I mean,
I think in this day and age, most people just rely on email and phones. I wouldn't want my address published. I agree.
Right.
yeah, I mean, but that's the only concern when I hear you talking about that. And I can see it being an issue, but it's kind of a hard problem to solve.
But most of
I
the
would
correspondence we
be-
get are the NAs now scan it and send it to us anyway. And then from there, then it becomes that dialogue with us and that person, and then you're out of the loop.
Yeah, and the thing is, having direct contact with the chair via email, if there's something that's got to be mailed, that's between them and the person.
Yeah, exactly.
What the thing is, we've got to protect our chairs, because there are vindictive people out there, and especially if they got your address, there's the tires on your car going.
Yeah, I don't.
Quite
like
honestly,
that.
it's not that hard. But, no, but I mean, as a practical matter, I think that's the case. But I mean, what I do hear is that you're saying in some cases, it is a problem. So I mean, is it that much of a problem that you would say in some cases you would want the chair to put their mailing address on there?
Not to bring up the wrong side of the issues that we have. If you're a developer and you're really not interested in going to Kathleen's board, then I will mail us to NCO, but not her address or name.
But I get it anyway, and then.
But that's
Well, it's a good point, and that's maybe why we want to have two forms, yeah.
But I don't think that would solve this problem. If they're gonna send you stuff, they're not going through the proper
Yeah.
channels anyway.
Right.
So, yeah,
So-
that's,
You know what, we can make it one.
no, I'm not, I
I
think
think the
email and
difference is just what shows up on our website for your contact information versus we already get stuff from the city that's meant to be for the whole board. And then it might be labeled chair of the Waikiki Neighborhood Board or something.
Well, I'm just, okay, so I just thought by your comments, you were kind of suggesting that you might in certain cases want the chair to actually put their personal mailing address. I'm sorry, that's what I was, not the email and phone number. I think that think everybody, from what I gathered, is fine with that
Yeah.
for the chairs.
Yeah.
So, okay, so maybe we were just talking about two different
Yeah,
things.
yeah. It's not like I'm forcing you to put your mail.
Well, but that's kind of what I thought you were leading to.
This was an addition because of issues over the years. This wasn't a main focus to this item.
Okay.
We're getting a dog sniffing, a bomb sniffing dog. No,
Okay, all right, moving on. Jacob, welcome to coming into the meeting. Kevin, go ahead, your hands up. I'll get to Tom.
Chair, thank you. Regarding 107B, references to private matters or matters under litigation, is there any sense that discussion of complaint process matters should be characterized as litigation or mentioned here specifically, only to, again, temper conversations and comments that might be made during a board meeting? And if that's felt not to be apropos to the preceding clause, public affairs, could it be its own subclause or something such as that? Just wondered if the committee thought there would be anything worth considering. Thank you.
Can you answer that?
Yeah, as far as complaints, unless you're in like a commissioner on a board, then you'd certainly want to recuse yourself as part of participating in any statements about that. But I don't think that, I mean, I would generally say it's probably not something the boards have to bring up, but if they wanted to, that, I don't think B would preclude that. That would be my feeling, or my interpretation, I should say, not feeling. That's it, Chair. Thank you.
Okay, any other discussions? Tom?
Thank you, Chair. First, on this last bit, I think the complaint process and having to deal with that or whatever is largely something that has been left to Chapter 18, if you will. And I'd have to go back and double check what was the 2016 amendment to that. But basically, I have not been in any situations that I can recall where there is confusion as to litigation as commonly understood and something that was a complaint involving the board or a board member. So I would not want to further add language in here to throw in the neighborhood plan complaint process. Different point though is this. Chapter 13 here is powers, duties, and functions of the neighborhood boards. And in that regard, I'm trying to keep in my mind this second clause, if you will, second sentence of subsection A, about authorizing contact information. I would like to propose, without doing the wordsmithing this very moment, but just adding a couple of words in there or whatever, that in order to fulfill that representative capacity or to facilitate direct communication with a member, because that goes more to the point of representative. Otherwise, the second sentence in there absolutely is unconnected to everything else in 213-107. And yet I don't want to lose that at that particular point into Chapter 14, which is rules of the neighborhood board or boards. Okay, so there's no great place to put it. I would leave it there, but I would like to massage that just a little bit more and take a look at what you offered there, Lloyd, for some of that other information.
So can you make those edits and get them to me then?
Yeah, and I'll talk to Lloyd, because the key there is, again, it may be cleanest as a separate, subsection of 107.
Good, Ben.
The only thing that would concern me is just putting in that superfluous language. I mean, to me, I don't know. I think it works fine. You just said chair shall authorize. I mean, it talks about board members and then it just specifically points to chairs. I don't know. I guess I would wait to see what language you had, but I would be a little opposed to making things too complicated and adding more subsections and that sort of thing. This is a general thought. Thank you, Chair.
Okay. Any other discussions? Okay, seeing none, we're gonna move on to 213-108.
Chair, I would ask that we adopt these formally, just to get it for the record. If the committee wants to adopt it, the proposal by the
Okay, so can I get a motion to go ahead and adopt, for edits?
Yeah,
With
with
second? Okay, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? None,
That'd be a
okay,
conflict of
pass.
interest.
Okay, 2-13-108 membership. A member of the board shall be a resident, including military personnel, military family members, and legal resident aliens, whose primary residence is in the neighborhood district and sub-district as applicable, who is at least 18 years of age and who is duly elected by vote of the respective neighborhood district, sub-district as applicable, and appointed by vote of the respective board to fill a vacancy in accordance with this plan and all other applicable laws. The city residents of any military personnel and military family member shall serve as a primary residence for purposes of membership requirements under this section, except as set forth in section 2-13-109. No officer or employee of any branch or agency of the federal, state, city government shall be precluded from membership on a board. No term limits shall apply to board members. Upon the death of a board member, the executive secretary shall declare the member's seat vacant. The vacancy shall become effective upon the mailing of the letter up to the presiding officer of the board, at which time the vacancy can be included on the board agenda as provided by section 2-14-104. A concurrent holding of elective public, that's 109. Get going here, town halls. Okay. So what discussion items we got here for membership?
One hasn't.
Yeah, we have a
Small thing.
a small thing that's a big thing. In terms of item D, where it says no term limit shall apply to board members, we would like to scratch that and put in a term limit, and basically a member of the board shall be limited to serve a maximum of 4 terms.
Is that consecutive terms?
I think that's a good question.
Yeah, that's.
You know, I think, it's actually a good question in terms of this committee, because it's 4 consecutive terms. A maximum of 4 terms, consecutive, and then you can have a break and run again, or is it, can you run 2 terms and then another 2 terms, a break, and then, again.
I mean,
It would
the
be
mayor,
limited.
the governor, everything is consecutive.
Right, and I would look at,
No, I was just thinking the same thing.
Supposedly, by the law.
I would entertain the word consecutive.
I would say 4 consecutive
Yeah.
terms.
Might not be thinking clearly. Can you give me an example of how that would?
That's 8 years. So if I were to run, I could run 4 times, sit on the board for 8 years, and I'm done.
And then run again in the next,
I could then sit out for 2 years and then run again if I
for
wanted
another
to.
2.
And once this gets approved, I'll say bye-bye to you guys.
Yeah.
No, it takes effect after you, from next year.
So the tally start.
Because it starts all over, because I got my 20 years in already.
Okay, sure.
Go ahead.
Can you tell us why you want to do this? I mean, I've heard a little bit about the mechanics of how it might operate, but tell us why.
I think from our perspective, everything we do is about public. And it's about getting public engagement, getting public to participate. And I have always been a believer that if that's the objective, then you should look at turning over your board members in a reasonable amount of time. There certainly is a need for institutional knowledge. I mean, I am a true believer in that. But at the same time, I think from our perspective, we would like to get more people involved. We would like to get it.
Follow up. So what I would ask is if you think about how many people that are currently sitting on the board that would be, now we're talking about starting the tolling, starting this, starting the point in the
Right.
future. But let's hypothetically, if you could backdate this, how many members of the board currently do you think would have to just leave the office or stop being a board member at this term? And to me, that might be quite a bit, because I know from my, this is anecdotal, of course, this is just the board that I'm on. There are a lot of people who've been well over 8 years.
Yeah.
And the concern that I would have is, who's going to replace those people? Do we have enough interest out there? Are these people crowding out other people that might be interested in running? And, this might create quite a big issue, not now, of course, but when it starts taking effect 8 years down the road, I mean, it might be a serious problem. So
Sure.
I would.
Go ahead.
So, running off of what Pat says, I mean, I personally don't have a problem with term limits. I think they helps to do that. There seems to be enough interest, and probably right now, most of my board hasn't been on 8 years. It wasn't true at one time, but now we've had a lot of turnover. We've got a lot of younger people. There seems to be renewed interest because of the stuff that's happening in my community. So there seems to be more interest. Having said that, what I'm looking at is the logistics. So take it, we have an empty vacancy. Nobody gets elected to that seat. And the person who had the seat had it for 8 years. Is it then okay for them to get appointed back to that seat? Because nobody else wants it? And that's, so these are the little mechanical things.
That's what I was going to
Yeah.
suggest, is that maybe we say they can't run after 8 years, but they could be appointed. And that way you would allow the opportunity for someone else to fill that seat. But if you can't, I mean, that's just my, that's what I would suggest.
Because I mean, the last election in my sub-district, 4 seats, was the only one that ran, which is highly unusual. Now we've filled all those seats with really good people. Since then, we've gotten some good people in there. But the point is that what happens if a long-term member steps down and nobody stands up? We have one sub-district where that could happen, for example.
Yeah, and I think the key is if that person is at the end of their 4th term and there is nobody that runs in that seat, as opposed to there is nobody, but then when you have a meeting, there are 2 people, including that board member, who want to get back in that seat.
But then you have a choice, and then somebody else they don't have to vote that board member back on the seat, they could vote a new person. So that would be my concern and thank you, Patrick, for raising that, because that then becomes a problem. We do have some boards where it is problematic to fill the seats. Other boards, that's not an issue.
Right.
So maybe if you would be amenable to changing it, so not be eligible to run for re-election after their 3rd term is complete or a full term. I mean, you have to think about the wordsmithing in a tad, but essentially they can't run.
But they can.
But they could be appointed
I
by
mean,
the board.
I would ask you, then that does add additional complexity, because then you think, okay, when does the 8 years start? Is it upon their appointment? Like, say if they want to, because we've had people. I have one on my board that's been there the whole time, apparently. So
Me too.
so I mean, it's not unusual they could serve 8 years, get appointed, and serve another 8 years. So the question, you'd have to kind of reason out
Yeah.
how that works. But I would strongly suggest that. I think that would allow our concern.
That would be my concern, yeah, is that you get rid of somebody who wants the seat, nobody else wants it, and then what do? You got a vacancy you can't fill.
Yeah, exactly. And our perspective, from my perspective, has always been is that speaks of a larger problem.
Yeah, I don't disagree, but at the same time, depending on your quorum issues, your recusal issues, you don't want to have this seat and then never be able to vote on something because that, for whatever reason. It's just something to think about. I don't disagree with term limits. I think, we have them for other elected offices. There's no reason why the board shouldn't also have that, and sometimes that's a healthy thing.
Good. Yeah, and I think this speaks to a larger, different viewpoint that I have. And that is, I don't see board members as that far from the public. What I see is activist public members, because they don't really have authority, and to compare them to, say, a council member or a representative or senator is just, the difference is enormous. And so I know the law, obviously, like the Sunshine Law, does not agree with my perspective, but that's how, yeah, so I mean, I agree. I realize that. But that's how I see it. I mean, I don't think there's an enormous, and I argued that when I talked to a legislator about it, but you know, it is what it is. So I did, maybe you're on the winning side, but that's how I view it. And I think that's how I personally see how the plan should be shaped. I do think we need to protect people who aren't board members to speak, and we do have the Sunshine Law to do that. But board members, at the end of the day, they're just neighborhood activists and such. And so there's not this huge divide between people who attend the meeting and the board members, I think.
But I have to say I have heard from other community members across the island where they'll go to a board meeting and they feel that alienated from the board because they feel it's very cliquish. And we all know during some elections, they'll all put up their people and sometimes they get all elected and then they feel like somehow they're being cut out of the process. I do hear that. So that's kind of the other side of it where this at least would allow some of that turnover where people might feel a little more engaged. So, but I do agree with you, Pat. I think I just want to deal with the vacancy problem. I don't want to make that worse.
Yeah, at the same time, I think, you know, we write it up and it says limited to a certain maximum of 4 consecutive terms. Then if the board member does 4 consecutive terms and sits out 1 term, they can come back again.
Yeah,
Well, but I don't think that's what we
that
were
doesn't solve
suggesting.
our problem.
We were talking is not allowing them to run for a 5th term, but they could be appointed during that 5th term. And to be appointed, they would obviously, if someone else wanted that seat, they could either run or they could go for the appointment at the same time, you know, at minimum at the same time, that former board member.
Well, and as far as an appointment, and that was my concern, is that if you have an appointment and the board member is there and you have somebody else is there, I mean, everybody on the board kind of knows the board member, so they're going to make, there's an advantage.
No, I think I've had instances where the former board member didn't get back on the board, so it does happen.
But all a person has to do is run for the seat. I mean, it's quite honest,
Right.
because as a practical
Well,
matter,
But there is a situation where if you run, you have to file by a certain time, and then somehow they did not file. And the seat becomes vacant, and then there's a meeting and you have a vacant seat, and that person says, you know what, I've decided I want to sit there.
Dylan?
If we were gonna add more clarifying language, I'd be interested in, we all know how difficult it can be at times to fill a vacancy. It might be on the agenda for a few months. So let's say the term just started and yeah, you had someone that turned out, they're interested in filling, so they show up. Yeah, maybe no one else heard about it and saw the agenda, so then they show up. So what if you had a break of, let's say, 6 months where that turned out member can't join until after 6 months the terms began? That would give new people 6 months to see it, learn about it, show up and volunteer.
Okay, one more time, Ben.
One more time.
Yeah, you know.
I'll make it good. Yeah, I'll try to. So maybe you have some language to the effect that you asked or kind of demand the chairs read, you know, in that June or whenever right before the filing period that says board members who have served 3 consecutive terms may not run. We currently have, and then they provide those board members that are subject to the restriction, and that at least provides some community knowledge.
Right.
I mean, that's just a suggestion of how you could, and I think, Dylan, that's a great suggestion too, is you have some cooling off period.
Yeah, grace period.
Yeah.
Well, let's reach out to our guest here, Dr. Melendez. What do you say?
Thank you, Chair. I think I'm looking back at it in the context of board members. The board members are volunteers. They're not lobbyists. They protect We are the conduit of communication between the government and the people in the government. And I would be concerned about limiting any term limits to any board members. I think what may be profitable within a board is that we would limit the amount of terms a chair or vice chair would be. I'd rather see the officers rotated to allow more experience to be brought into the board than actually to limit term limits to board members. The community really relies on us. And it's like Tom sitting there with us now. Tom's been a blessing to us to be with his years of experience. And I would hate to go ahead and have a member of the board that's been there for many years and guided the community through many growth processes to say, okay, now we don't need you anymore. That's not a valid statement. We need everyone because it's a joint effort. And together we pull together, and together we walk through problems and we win together. So I would not be in favor of applying term limits to board members. I think another approach to help rotate the officers within a board might be a good suggestion.
Okay, well, thank you for your input. I'm gonna move on to Jake. Saw your hand up. You haven't had a chance to speak yet?
Thank you. Can you hear me?
Yes, I got you good.
All right, thank you. Yeah, no, regarding term limits here, I would, my instinct is to be opposed to them at the neighborhood board level. There's pretty significant fluctuations in terms of some years you get a lot of candidates, some years you don't get many candidates. I know a lot of boards have vacancies. Just to illustrate this right here in Waikiki, Sub-District 2 went from struggling to fill the number of candidates not more than a couple of years ago to our cup runneth over in number of candidates. And given the advisory nature of the boards, given that the boards really lack any formal legal power or ability to, approve or do anything, I think that term limits I don't know the problem term limits are trying to solve. Maybe we could set a maximum age for people on the neighborhood boards, a mandatory retirement age of 75 or 80. I think maybe if we wanted to include fresh blood in the board system, I think that would get at that objective better. So just an alternative to chew on, but I think and especially for 4 terms, I'm not sure that the juice is worth the squeeze on term limits for the neighborhood boards, at least.
Okay, well, thanks for your comments, Jake. I do resemble those comments in some way at 76. So. But Tom, I'll switch over to you real quick, and then Alex and Kevin will be with you shortly. Go ahead, Tom.
Okay, thank you. You still got plenty of juice, Larry. I'm not far behind you. Couple of things here. Generally, I'm opposed to term limits. A lot of things that have been said. But in the interest of if you're directed to Lloyd, if you're going to propose a time period for a potential term limit, then what I'm hearing right now is 4 consecutive terms, which equals 8 years. What needs to be taken into consideration and double checked is, well, what in other circumstances is a limit currently on service? In essence, it becomes 10 years for city council members, because when you look at the language, it's partial, not to exceed more than half of an unfinished term or whatever. So it stretches to 10 years. In our situation, the best thing to look at is what is the limit, both city and state, for service on a board or commission. And as far as I recall, it's 10 years. So 2 5-year terms. So if you're going to suggest something in that regard, and not that I support this, but the bottom line is try to put it into that same context of matching what the lowest limit is, which currently would be the limit on boards and commissions, not more than 2 terms, which equals 10 years in that regard. And depending on when you're appointed, because almost all of those are non-elected, then a lot of folks will serve far less than that because you finish a term and you're not reappointed. You get into the other variations. But immediately 8 years compared to if I offered to serve the city or state in different non-elective capacity or whatever, then in fact it potentially could be 2 years more. Just to say on that. Okay, thanks.
Thank you, Tom. Alex?
Yeah, thank you. And I know you're referring to Dr. Melendez, and for the record, I'm not one about titles, but I'm Dr. Gaussman. If you want to call me that. And it's just a joke. I'm not worried at all about that. I'm strongly opposed to these limits. I think that, and it's like, for me personally, I think I've been a member for like 7 years. I've thought about stepping down because it's such a hard, difficult, like every board, unless you're retired, I have a full-time job, and I think that makes me feel even less appreciated for an already thankless job, right? I volunteer my hours. I do a lot of work to help the community. And now you're telling me that, I'm not saying for me personally, but you're telling those people that they can no longer run. I think that's a real slap in the face. Personally, this is my own perspective. I know we want new blood, and we encourage that every year, but and every board's different, but in our board, we consistently have a lack of people to fill those roles. And now you're telling about some of the most productive, the productive ones that they have to step aside, and they're like, oh, well, if it opens back up, then they can jump back. You could lose months. I mean, we only meet once a month. We have multiple breaks. Like, we're trying to do these initiatives. They're really hard because we don't have time. And then now you have to step away from initiatives. Say, I'm working with like people from the Parks Department and things, and now you got to step away. You lose that title. I think it's going to hamper an already really, really challenging job, which is being a board member and trying to get things done for your community. So I definitely want to say that. I think you're also going to people run all the time, and then they get on there and they don't even ever show up, or they show up for 1 or 2 meetings. And this is like, in our board member, we don't really click up. There's a lot of different views and perspectives, and I don't want to say conflicts, but we feel very differently about things. And I think that's a healthy and a good thing. And I think you'll lose a lot of quality board members if you do this. And in our case, they're going to be really hard to fill, because we've encouraged people to, every time we have things coming up, I say, please, people run, and they come in, and I try to, mentor them and help them get up to speed. But the truth is, a lot of them check out after a couple months and then say, I can no longer. So I just want to voice, and going back to some of the previous comments made, I don't see, there's no monetary incentive here to be a board member. And I don't see what you're getting at with something that's already a volunteer and largely thankless position.
Hey, Alex, thank you. All great points.
Yeah.
And thank you for your service there to the Napa Beach Board. We appreciate it, especially for people that got full-time jobs. Many here sitting at the table still. But I'm retired, and volunteerism is sucking the daylights out of me right now. But lastly, Kevin, definitely want to hear your perspective.
Mayor, thank you very much. The issue that Commissioner Smith brought up earlier about analyzing how often this might be an issue, I think could be very easily addressed with a simple analysis of the number of uncontested districts and sub-districts over the last couple of terms. That hopefully that data remains available and could be helpful here to see. Secondly, what Dr. Melendez mentioned earlier about rotating amongst the officers on a board, I think that's a great idea. I don't know if this is the right place to codify that, but I do like the idea of allowing more people to have the knowledge of what it takes to be chair, so that the board members don't feel like they're locked in, say, oh, we got to get the same guy again because he's done it and nobody else has ever done it before that I can remember. So therefore, that's where we're going. I think that distribution would be great. So next, I believe the issue of term limits for neighborhood board members came up as a proposal to the Charter Commission. The last commission meeting I went to, the meeting adjourned before that proposal was voted upon. Maybe the gentleman who went to the meeting today can advise if that was indeed not forwarded to the short list regarding term limits for neighbor board members. I think that any term limit shouldn't start until after the people who are currently on a board, at least one cycle after that. So there's no sense of this being directed at or aggressive towards any current board members that someone who's making this proposal might want to get rid of. And then lastly, what happens if someone moves, goes to a different district or sub-district? Does their tally count restart? Because maybe they could contribute differently or in a new fashion to a new district or sub-district. I think these are all things, these edge cases that do need to be worked out, explained, and then gamed out. Thank you.
Yeah, and I'm one of those that moved from one sub-district to another, so I sat out for 2 years.
Sorry, Kevin. Sorry, Lloyd, I didn't see your hand.
So you can get going.
If I can just answer that question about term limits. What happened very late that day, Kevin, was in fact the Charter Commission voted to not advance that proposal on the basis that this was not a charter level thing. It should be left to the commission and the neighborhood plan. Okay. Yeah.
They actually said that.
Yes,
I wholeheartedly agree with
yeah.
that.
No, I do too.
Because again, the distinction that if it's in the charter, you got to take
Right.
any amendment to the entire electorate.
Okay.
I did want to address quickly, if I could, go ahead, Lloyd, you go first though. You've been waiting patiently.
No, you can.
So I wanted to address Kevin's comment about officers, having being a chair myself. Sometimes it's because nobody else wants it. Being a chair, and Kevin, you were chair very briefly, I remember, at downtown. You know how thankless a job it is. And I know, Steve, you were chair for a while. And I would say that that's one that's a little tricky. Sometimes people end up being a chair for a long period of time, like Larry, Patrick for quite a while, Larry and myself, is because nobody else on the board wants the job because they know how hard it is.
I had to strongly lobby to get someone to take.
Trust me, if somebody came up to me tomorrow and said, I'd like the job, I'd be like, here, have it. But I'd be a little careful. I hear where you're coming from, and I think, it's always good to have new blood. I don't disagree with that. But sometimes it's hard to get other people to take it over because it is such a grueling job. It is difficult.
And I'll be honest with you, every chair should be thinking about training their board members to be as productive as they can.
I do.
As citizens.
That's why we have committees.
Leadership, management.
Yeah.
And there are times that I totally feel guilty because I look at my young people coming in, I says, I like to throw them in there, for a couple months. I'll back you up, but I'll let you be the chair so you can learn and see what the responsibilities. But maybe those are things we can do later on. But all great dialogue, everybody. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
That was the plan, right? Come on. Well, thank you for those comments. Couple of comments on my side is, as far as the chairs on the board, that's up to the board.
Yeah.
And I think that should not be taken away from them. They all decide who they want to be chair. So that's one aspect of it. The other aspect is, I'm considering this not to begin immediately, but it'll start from now. So, in the next election, it will be, everybody has.
So you'd have to stagger people going out and not lose the institution.
Yeah, you don't lose that, but at the same time, it's not retroactive. But at the same time, I think one of the things that we should remember is, all of you on the commission have a 10-year term, 5 and 12, you get reappointed, so you have a term limit. My question to all of the board members who are not in favor of it, if you were not on the board and because of term limits, would you stop coming to the board meeting?
But I have to say, Alex made some excellent points, so and now I'm waffling.
No.
Thank you, Alex.
my point is that everybody here is involved for a reason, like Alex, and Alex, I appreciate you. Appreciate all the board members. But you're involved for a reason, and that reason doesn't go away. In fact, practically speaking, a member of the public has more,
Freedom.
freedom than a board member. I mean, they can talk about anything they want. And you can't file a complaint against a member of the public.
I have, well, actually, this last thing, one of my board members forgot to file. He didn't end up, we had a vacancy, and so he shows up at the board meeting, and then a previous old board member who had gotten voted off at another election several years before showed up, and it was split, the vote, and he said, we'll come back. So we came back, and then he decided he wasn't gonna, he said if she wants it, she can have it. Because then he told me later, he said, well, as a member of the public, I have more freedom to come and go and do what I want.
Okay, go ahead. Real quick, these are, board members are elected by the public. The public can choose not to reelect them, if they want. That would be my final comment. I'm opposed to this, I have to tell you. I appreciate your perspective, but.
Yeah, I think we start some action, and I think I'm also, sorry, Lloyd, kind of backing away. I mean, Alex made a very persuasive comment, and as I said, Patrick, and, the community has voted board members off for that reason. So, my biggest concern is not filling seats, and Alex did say, he's right, and I've been to enough board meetings where seats have not been filled for long periods of time, to the fact that now they're going at large because they can't.
Right, and I think that's the question. Why?
Yeah.
Why?
Yeah.
Change the parameters of that is something that we should look at.
And maybe that's what the real question is, why aren't these seats being filled? What's preventing them from getting filled? And maybe that's more the real issue, because again, you can get good turnover. I've had great turnover on my board. I only have there's only like 3 or 4 of us that have been on there since the dinosaurs now. But we have a lot of good new board members, really strong members who've come up, and they've shown up, and we've just shanghaied them onto the board, and they're enjoying it. So I'd say maybe we should just leave things as they are. That would be my recommendation at this point.
Okay. What I'd like to do is, because not to get ahead of myself, because the next section that we got coming up, for chapter 14, that's the one that was very contentious. A lot of things in there from the neighborhood commission survey from last year. I think we have to canvass the boards anyway, and just see what they have for their opinions on whether we should have term limits. We can do that with a questionnaire. But anyway, is there any other discussions on this section? If not, we get the last one.
Chair, I would like to make a final.
Yeah, go ahead.
You gotta have a disposition, not a comment, just if the committee would make a decision one way or another.
I move that we keep it as is,
Without
without the change.
Oh, well, no, I think we could canvass. But I'm just saying, have this,
make a decision for now. But
Okay.
I'll still canvass the boards
Yeah.
to see what their thoughts are.
and I would second that motion from Catherine.
Okay. Are there any? Say here.
You were out of the room, you called me Kathy. but-
Oh, Kathy's okay.
I'm sorry.
That's
Sorry.
okay.
I think I told you that before too. Okay, everybody all in favor? Aye.
Lloyd objects.
One no.
That is the democratic process in action.
Technically, it doesn't pass.
And it actually we lost our quorum.
Technically,
It's still the same.
It's still the same.
Yeah.
You guys don't have to pile on.
see, this is
Still love you, Lloyd.
Yeah, I'm gonna retreat.
All right, let's move on. Past my half hour here.
Right, yeah.
Okay, the last item we got here is 2-13-109, concurrent holding of elected public office. An individual shall not serve concurrently in an elected public office and as a member of any board. A board member elected or appointed to an elective public office shall be disqualified from membership of the board. and upon the earlier and the start of the term of office for which elected or upon administration of the oath of office for which appointed, a board member shall not be required to resign from a member's seat to run as a candidate for elected public service. That's pretty much to the point. Any comments on that, Lloyd?
Yeah, again, my proposal on item C, strike the word not. So it says a board member shall not, and strike that word not. And at the end of that sentence, excuse me, member seat as run as a candidate for elective office. And it's comma, effective immediately upon filing the nomination paper with the applicable office. And basically what they said is that if you run for public office and as soon as you file the papers, you need to resign from the board.
I actually I completely agree with you on that, having had board members run. And I know this addresses, I know he's not here tonight, but I know that's something that Greg was concerned about, the fairness of the system and people getting extra time when they're running for candidates.
Yeah, and we know that people use the board as a platform, but they should, if they file, then that's no longer there. It's unfair to the other people.
Yeah,
So,
Is there anybody opposed to this?
I think it's a good idea.
Yeah, Tom, go ahead.
I think it's something as well that we need to draw in a statement, whether in support or in opposition. To me, it's a matter that if you apply, in essence, a resign to run provision for neighborhood boards, which is very problematic in terms of still in this state, having a resign to run for local office. We do not have a resign to run provision for a federal office. So you start getting, you add additional squares on the checkerboard, if you will, as to, oh, I'm in the capacity now of neighborhood board member, so I'm in this position. But if I'm going to do this, I've got to do all these other kinds of things or whatever. So generally speaking, to me, it's a matter that if an individual at both ends of the spectrum, one, they joined a week ago in order to pad their resume, their flyer, which is coming out a week after they're elected to the board, to note that they're a board member, to somebody who, after 30 years on the board, is finally convinced to run for an office, or is appointed to an office, and stuff, then they should be put in that fire of bearing the heat as compared to trying to save the community from whatever this person may or may not do, whatever. In other words, test them by fire so that if they have not disclosed, that's an area coming up. Dylan, you brought this up earlier already. That's an area where I do have a suggestion for amendment because of candidates who do not disclose and are trying to fly that under the wire, if you will. So one way or another, they should disclose so that you can better test them, if you will, how they conduct themselves to the meeting. But in that regard, on a general basis, I would not support a resign to run provision, if you will. If you were to do that, then I think the point of measurement is correct. And that is when you actually file your candidate papers. The difficulty I have with that, which is, again, trying to address disclosure next meeting, is if somebody's already been running for many, many months, they got a website up, all this other kind of crap, or they just pulled papers, but they haven't run, they haven't filed yet, but they are active candidates in that regard, but have failed to disclose. So there's a bunch of different points, if you will, on that timeline in which, what do you want the individual to do? How are you going to measure them?
Okay, thank you, Kathleen.
In this day and age, it's almost impossible not to know that somebody's running. I check the Office of Elections every Friday to see who's running. And I'll go up to them, oh, I hear you're running for office. Good for you. I out them.
Yeah,
I out people, and I do think it's really important. We've had board members, and I've seen this in other boards, you're right, the only way they get on is to run for office, and I think if, you can't serve two masters, and that's how I look at it. You can't be on the neighborhood board and be a disinterested, clear-headed, because if you're trying to please a constituency, that, I feel you're serving two masters. And I think you should just resign at that point, once you file the papers, because not everybody pulls papers and runs.
Well, I'll make a motion that we accept this language as submitted by Lloyd.
I agree. Second.
Okay. All in favor?
Well, we got one person taking his hand up. Nice try.
See your hand.
Thank you.
And if Alex will be after Jake.
Oh, Alex doesn't have his
No,
hand.
I-
Just Jacob.
Just
Just Jacob.
Can I,
Jacob,
am I
you
good
still
to
there?
speak? Can you hear me?
We don't hear you.
Huh, interesting. I've got my mic undone.
Okay.
Can you hear me now?
Kevin can hear Jacob.
I hear him.
Does the
Yeah, gotcha. What you got?
Oh, can you hear me now?
Yes.
You're breaking up.
Okay. Interesting. No, I just wanted to comment.
Yes, real deal.
Hold that space bar down or something.
Hey, Jake, I'm a cryptologist and I can't understand you.
Okay, Jacob, we're keep losing you. We're so sorry.
Thumbs up or thumbs down?
Yes.
Alex can't hear him.
Alex. No, I think Alex gave that to me.
Oh.
Hey, Jake, we're gonna have to move on. We don't have you. We apologize. Okay, all right, moving on. Okay, in closing for today.
Sorry.
Oh,
Yeah,
yes.
so that was the motion?
Yes.
Motion for Patrick, second from.
Yep.
Support.
Okay, all in favor? Say aye. Anybody opposed? None? Okay, passes. Okay, and lastly, moving on. Our next commission meeting will be April 20th. And before that, what I'd like to do is for the next meeting, like a couple things here. One is Dylan approached me the other day and asked, is there any way that we could change these commission meetings to daytime?
Oh, that was just an idea.
Well, I want to bring it
Some of
up.
us actually work for a living.
Not the board member.
Okay.
And good football.
Okay, just, well, we get the stars to line, but, you know, when people that are working schedules, your schedule changes all the time. But, so anyway, I want to bring that up. The next thing is,
Only if you feed me over lunch. How's
so,
that?
so the next section that we have is the rules of neighborhood boards. This is chapter 14. And it's a 2-14-101 all the way to 2-14-127. So there's 27 items. And if all of you can remember, last year, Steve Melendez chaired the neighborhood commission survey. And we went out to all the board members, and as we collected that information, this chapter right here, 95% of the complaints were because of this section. So I'd like to do just a refresh is, Dylan, if this is possible, is to do another email blast and ask the board members, hey, we're in the process at our next board meeting, April 20th. We're going to review this section and we'd like to gather information from our board members if they have any recommended changes.
I never saw the survey results. Whatever happened to those? I never saw
We had a meeting, you missed that meeting.
them. I know, but I think
Oh,
if you're gonna
Publishing.
do that, take the survey results, send them out to the board members and say to the board members, these are the survey results that we got. Is there anything you want to add? And that way you're not reinventing, people who can recall what the
Okay.
survey, because I got
that's what
board
I'm doing right
members.
now,
Yeah,
refresh.
okay, but I think let's start with the survey results. You got a great base to start with
Okay.
instead of reinventing.
Okay, good point. So we'll do that and then Dylan, is it better for them to have one point, send it to you, and then you'll forward it to me, or do you want them to send it to me?
I think you as the chair would be appropriate.
Okay, because I don't want to get blasted. And I'm thinking I'll get 5 from
Hey,
each
Jerry,
board.
it's your idea.
5 times. Hey, while I was driving here, I was thinking about it. I said, what?
I think that's a great start, Larry. I think it's always good to start.
I just want to be,
Solid base.
I
No,
want
I
to put this
agree.
thing to bed.
But I can tell you right now, based on previous experience, let's chunk it up and like maybe, I know this is gonna extend it, but I think we're not gonna get through all 27 in a meeting.
No, not one meeting.
I'd say no more than 5 per meeting. I know that takes a while to get through, but
Depends on.
it depends on what it is, you know,
Yeah.
let's see what kind of feedback we get.
What is it, chapter 14?
Yes, chapter 14. And then from there, I think the rest of the plan will be pretty easy. That this is the one.
Never say that.
Well,
You're optimistic.
I want that light at the end of the tunnel.
I love
Okay,
that.
other than that, if any other last minute comments?
Nope, thank
There
you
will be
very
a
much.
neighborhood commission meeting next week, 6 o'clock, here and online.
Right, Tom?
And next week, Monday, March 23rd at 2:30 PM is technically a continuation of today's meeting as the Charter Commission starts really getting into more direct consideration of the various proposals. And there is a section that deals with boards and commissions, which there are various, not many, but various neighborhood board related proposals. So there's some things still on there.
Okay,
Thank you.
all right. Seeing no other comments, this meeting is now adjourned, 7:48.
Good job. Larry. See you.
Thank you,